Hello everybody, TV Tornado here, and today we're going to be discussing Tournament 4, as you can see on the screen, the States of Matter tournament. Now, this tournament was voted by the community, by a good handful of people, and I'm just going to use this video to go over what that entails and what Pokemon people can be using. So States of Matter, for anyone that don't know, are basically solids, liquids, gases and plasma. To translate this into Pokemon, we've gone for solids being steel type, liquid being water types, gas being poison types, plasma being electric types. And as I run through the rules, I'll just go over briefly kind of what to expect and what Pokemon we'll be seeing. So the start date for this tournament is going to be Monday the 17th of April, and trainers will have to submit their teams by Friday the 14th. Battles will be 4v4 doubles, best of 3, and a third game to be played if the scores are tied. An interesting thing about this tournament is that you will just have 4 Pokemon on your team. You won't have 6, you'll just pick 4 Pokemon, which I'll go into. These Pokemon will be 1 Steel type, 1 Water type, 1 Poison type, and 1 Electric type. These Pokemon can either be Dual types or Monotype. The Paradox Pokemon are taking a bit of a rest this tournament, as well as the Ruin Legendary Pokemon. As well as Pokemon such as the Magnemite line, the Varoom line, Quillfish, Rotom-Wash, Scrub, the Mareanie line, and the Toxel line. This is because these Pokemon share both typings of 2 States of Matter, and we want a bit more variety and standouts, so we want to see unique typings rather than the same duplicate types. In terms of Trustalizing, it will be allowed, but you'll only be able to Trustlize into a Steel type, a Water type, a Poison type, or Electric type. So your Steel types can Trustlize into a Steel type, or your Steel types can Trustlize into a Water type, or Poison or Electric. And that applies to the other types as well. Pokemon will be set to level 50, no duplicate Pokemon or held items. If you join our Discord server, that's mainly where the organisation will happen. People will be messaging to get matches going, and it's kind of the main hub for where the community resides. Egg and shooter moves are allowed, as well as no restrictions to IVs, EVs, natures. And if there is any inactivity or lack of interest to organise the games, admin will discuss if disqualification will be needed. Let's move over to the types now. I'm going to quickly run through Steel, Water, Poison and Electric to see some options that players might be choosing. So starting off, we have Forretress and Scizor. In a previous video I did discuss these two. Forretress is the more sturdier option that can set up traps. Forretress can take a one-shot hit with Sturdy. Scizor is more of the all-out attacker, with Priority Bullet Punch that gets powered up by Technician. Of these two, look out for fire types, but then again you can always Trustlize into a water type to avoid that damage. We do have Bronzong, which adds Psychic to the team. Psychic will help out with them poison types, as well as having 2 great abilities in Levitate and Heatproof. But with 116 defences, this Pokemon will be able to take a couple of hits anyway. And just underneath that we have Lucario. Lucario adds Fighting, which will help against the opposing Steel types. And if you're looking for more of a glassy cannon, then I'd suggest Lucario because you can make great use of its 110 attack or its 115 special attack. With 90 speed, you're looking at one of the fastest Pokemon in this format. We have Klefki here with Prankster. It's not the biggest attacker. It can get a knockout maybe, but it's mainly used more for support, for setting up screens, for setting up weather. You might even be able to paralyze the opponent with Thunder Wave. Moving on to Corviknight. 98 HP, 105 defense and 85 special defense. This Pokemon will take quite a couple of hits. But being weak to electric isn't ideal because the opponents will have an electric type on their team. So if you're going to run this thing, make sure you really invest in defences. Copperajah is next. Tied for the highest attack of 130 with Sizzle. This Pokemon has a ton of HP, but it's just quite slow. But you're mainly going to be dealing damage with Sheer Force and maybe a Life Orb. Moving on to the Gen 9 Pokemon now, we have Tinkaton. I went over Tinkaton in the Tournament 1 video. Tinkaton is the infamous Fairy and Steel type, which means it's only weak to ground and fire. And with decent abilities of Mold Breaker, Own Tempo and Pickpocket, as well as a signature move of Gigaton Hammer, this Pokemon can provide great attack to your team. Or if you want to run it as more of a support Pokemon, it gets access to Fake Out, Thunder Wave, Knock Off, and even Helping Hand. Orthworm is another Mono Steel type. However, this one gets Earth Eater, which allows it to take damage from ground type moves, which would make an ideal switch in if you send your electric type out and you just want to switch an Orthworm expecting a ground type move, because you'll just heal up. And with a massive 145 defense, this thing should take in a physical hit or two. And with Body Press, you can even use it as a Body Presser to take care of the opposing Steel types. Moving on, we have Kingambit. It adds Dark to your team, which is quite nice. And it gets Defiant, which allows you to raise your attack by 2. And with 100 HP, 120 defense and 85 special defense, this thing will be able to take in at least 2 or 3 hits, unless it's a fighting type move. Maybe you can Trustlize into a poison type, and then the fighting type moves won't do much to it. And then finally we have Goldengo. Goldengo is the only main special attacker on this lineup, with a massive 133. It's even got decent speed of 84. Maybe if you set up a Tailwind or if you give it a Choice Scarf, then all you need to do is make it rain, and you should be able to get a lot of big damage in. If I was to pick a top 3, I'd say Scizor, Kingambit and Goldengo. Scizor and Kingambit offer great power, Their typings are really nice because it gives them fairly few weaknesses. And with great abilities, your opponent's going to be facing a lot of physical attacks. And obviously with Goldingo, Make It Rain is a spread move that hits both Pokemon, which is nice for doubles. If you can set up a nasty plot, then in 2 or 3 turns, you should be able to win the match. Moving on to the water types now, we've got Golduck here with Swift Swim. 85 speed will be doubled, and with 95 special attack, you've got yourself quite a nice special attacker. You've got Slowbro. Its special attack is 100, which is just slightly above Golduck's. He's very slow with 30 speed. It is quite bulky with 95 HP, 110 defense, and 80 special defense. Cloyster is always a nice entry. With the highest defense in the game of 180, Cloyster will be able to take on physical attacks that you wouldn't expect. But you do have access to Steel Link, which is incredible because then Icicle Spear and Rock Blast, which would normally hit 2 times to 5 times, is guaranteed to hit 5 times. That's it at a base damage of 125. Just underneath that we have Paldeum Tauros, the Aqua breed, one of the fastest right now of 100 speed, and great physical offense of 110. But adding fighting to your team, like I mentioned before, just allows you to hit the steel types really well. Another Intimidator, Gyarados. It's only weak to Electric and Rock, which is quite nice. And as we all know, Gyarados has been a staple in battling over the years. But maybe in this format where electric opponents are guaranteed, this thing might not stand out too well. Your best chance is to Terrestrialize into electric type, but that means committing to Terrestrializing. Vaporeon has a massive 130 HP with nice special defense of 95, so you should be able to take on the special attacks quite nicely. And with 110 special attack, you can deal out quite nice damage with things like Hydro Pump and Ice Beam. But if you wanted to run this thing as more of a wall, then you've got options in that department too. Azumarill is interesting for this tournament. It does add Fairy to your team. Your best chance of hitting hard is to have huge power ability. However, with poison types looming, as well as the aforementioned electric types, maybe Azumarill isn't the best to use. We do have Quagsire next, which is only weak to grass, which would be nice in this tournament. You're immune to the electric type attacks, you resist the poison type attacks, and you resist the steel type attacks. This thing water absorb, and none of the Pokemon that your opponent will be using will hit you for super effective damage. They'll be hitting you for resisted damage. And with a bulky option such as Quagsire, that can recover, can use Toxic, and just kind of sits there, maybe Quagsire is a good option for you to use. Now we do have Slowking as well, very similar to Slowbro. It has the same abilities, same stats, except the special defense is swapped for the defense. Pelipper's somewhat an interesting option. It can set up the rain with Drizzle, but then that only really benefits itself, seeing how you won't be able to have an additional water type on the team. It is well known for using things like Hurricane and Hydro Pump. You could also use this thing to set up Tailwind. Maybe give this thing a Focus Sash, set up the Tailwind, and allow your partner Pokemon to do all the rest. Whiscash is next, and similar to Quagsire, it's only weak to grass. However, without water absorb, this thing will take neutral damage from water type attacks. It has 110 HP, which is nice, paired with the 73 and 71 defenses. However, it doesn't have quite the same utility as Quagsire, meaning that you're looking at a different option, but maybe not the better option. Floatzel is such a glass cannon though. You can hit really hard with things like Liquidation and Crunch, and with 115 speed you should be going first. However, with one hit from the opponent, Floatzel will probably KO, so use this thing with caution basically. And now for the third water and ground type, Gastrodon. Instead of having water absorb, it has Storm Drain, which is arguably better, because not only will you resist damage from poison, steel, you'll also be completely immune to electric and water. Gastrodon also gets access to things like Recover and Yawn, so you can tempt your opponent to switch out while you recover up. And if you want to go on the offense, then you've got things like Earth Power and Surf. Now we will get access to Samurott very soon. What is quite good is its massive 100 attack and 108 special attack, and it's even got nice bulk with 95 HP, 85 defense, and 70 special defense. However, you're not able to Terrestrialize into the bug type, which it will come out in, so you have to breed up your own one and Terrestrialize it into something different. Basculin is next. So with 98 speed, it's looking quite fast. You do have access to adaptability, which will mean that your water type moves will be doing double damage. And if you Terrestrialize into water type, then they'll just skyrocket in terms of power as well. It does have 92 attack, which is really nice if you want to take advantage of adaptability. You have Alamomola. Alamomola has a massive 165 HP stat, meaning that it will be staying around for one or two turns at least. And with 80 defense, you're definitely going to take on at least 1 or 2 physical hits. Maybe not so much on the special side, but then maybe that's where its movesets come in. You've got the boy Greninja himself. Similar to King Gambit, Greninja does add Dark to your team, but why should I even mention the Dark typing when it gets access to Protein? Protein allows this Pokemon to switch its typings at will, and with 95 attack and 103 special attack, with stab moves coming left, right and centre, Greninja is going to be a very good choice if you're looking to deal a lot of damage. But it is quite flimsy, so be careful in that respect. Plants is an interesting choice, being mono water type. It does get access to Mega Launcher, which is very interesting because with 120 special attack, you can take advantage of things such as Water Pulse, Dark Pulse, Dragon Pulse, Aura Sphere, and all those kind of moves. However, with 59 speed and similar bulk issues, but so it only really works in Tailwind or with a Choice Scarf. Bruxish is another water psychic type. However, rather than being bulky, this thing just goes all out with 105 attack and 92 speed. It gets access to Strong Jaw, which means that Crunch and Psychic Fangs will be doing additional damage. Or if you want to play more defensively, then Dazzling prevents priority moves, which if you predict that from the opposing Pokemon, such as Sucker Punch, Aqua Jet and Bullet Punch, then it just adds a niche to your team that the opponents might not be expecting. Dreadnought adds Rock to your team, as well as access to things like Rock Slide. It does get access to Swift Swim, so if you are able to set up the rain, or if you are relying on your opponent to set up the rain for their side, and with 74 speed, you're looking to outspeed quite a lot of opponents in the rain. And since it will be raining, water type moves will be doing additional damage too. And Dreadnought is quite bulky with 90, 90 and 68 defenses. Just look out for those grass type hits. But speaking of Swift Swim, just underneath it we have Barraskewda. Barraskewda is a very similar Floatzel. It has massive attack and massive speed. However, it's very flimsy in defenses, meaning that this thing will most likely be one shot without a Focus Sash. However, if you can't set the rain up, for whatever reason, maybe there's a different water type that you can look into. Another starter now, Quaquaval, does get access to Moxie, which is very nice. But I won't dwell on it too much because I've mentioned it too many times in the Tournament 1, 2 and 3 videos. So if you want to see my views on those, check those videos out. Palafin is such a solid option if you can set it up by switching it out and bringing it back in. It has really nice speed of 100, and if you do set it up into its hero form, then 160 attack is the same as a lot of legendaries at the moment. You also get access to Jet Punch, which is a priority move that outclasses Aqua Jet by 50%. And you also get Wave Crash, which does do recoil, but with 160 attack, this thing will just take the KO anyway. But again, Palafin is very situational because you have to switch out and switch back in. And all that switching, the opponent might be able to deal a lot of damage to whatever you're switching into. And finally, we move on to the two Pokemon that are a very interesting position in VGC currently. First, we have Dondozo, which is just a brick wall. It gets access to Earthquake and Wave Crash. You can run it more defensively with Rest. And if you're not careful, this Pokemon can just dominate a team. But at least with Tatsugiri, it does get Storm Drain. So if you're not looking at using Gastrodon, then Tatsugiri's Storm Drain works just as well because you'll be sucking up those Water-type moves. And with 120 special attack, once you've sucked up a Water-type move, moves such as Draco Meteor and Ice Beam will be doing so much damage, you might even get a good knockout or two. So if I was to pick a top 3, I'd opt for Gyarados, Gastrodon or Palafin. Gyarados' stats are basically perfect. Run this thing as a physical attacker that can reduce damage from the opposing Pokemon's physical attacks with Intimidate. Or if you just wanted to use this thing to sweep, then Moxie's a good option because if you get the knockout, then you'll get your attack increase. But if you didn't want to run this thing as an attacker, then it's got great utility moves that can throw your opponent off if they're not expecting a support Gyarados. Speaking of support, you've got Gastrodon. Gastrodon gets a great ability in Storm Drain. You also get massive defenses and HP, which will allow it to stick around. And only being weak to grass allows it to just stick around a lot more, knowing that the opponents won't be using grass types. And then finally with Palafin, like I mentioned, in Zero form it can do well, but you're mainly looking for its hero form, which will mean setting up. But if you can set it up, then the opponent might as well just give up there and then. Because if they don't have a counter for it, or if their ledge type is down, then Palafin is just going to dominate the game. Moving on to Poison now, we do get some interesting options with Venomoth. It's quite flimsy, but it does get nice abilities and nice speed. And maybe the bug typing will be useful for this team. You get Muck, which is a solid wall, and the inspiration for the poisonous nature of gases. Muck is quite slow, so you'll have to take advantage of its bulk instead. But this thing can hit hard with 105 attack. But what can hit hard is Gengar. Being a ghost type allows it to take no damage from normal or fighting. So if you have your steel type out, you can switch into this, expecting a fighting type move and take no damage. And then return the favour with a massive 130 special attack in things such as Sludge Wave or Shadow Ball. At 110 speed, this thing is one of the fastest in this tournament. Swalot is similar to Muck, quite bulky but quite slow. However, this thing doesn't really hit hard with only 73 attack. Skuntank is here. Skuntank is only weak to ground, which is brilliant. Quite fast with 84 speed. If you use its flinch ability, then any attack that you use has a chance to flinch the opponent. So if you want to do flinch hacks, then Skuntank is the way to go. We now move on to Toxicroak, which adds fighting to the poison type. Toxicroak gets access to Dry Skin, which is very interesting because it will heal itself from a water type move that comes its way, which is similar to Water Absorb. However, this thing works in the rain as well. Maybe if you can set the rain up somehow, maybe you have Pelipper on your team, then you can use Toxicroak just to heal up. And with 106 attack and 85 speed, set this thing up with Tailwind with Pelipper. You're looking at a Pokemon that can do a lot of damage in the poison and fighting department. I spoke about Muck, I spoke about Swalot, but Amoonguss is the true wall. One of the highest HPs of 114, great defenses of 70 and 80. Grass and Poison together helps out the weaknesses of each other. You get redirection from Rage Powder. You get access to Spore, which puts the opponents to sleep. But if you want to deal damage, then you've got things like Leaf Storm and Sludge Bomb, which with 85 special attack isn't actually too bad. And with access to Terrestrializing into, say, a Water type or a Steel type, Amoonguss will just sit around for even longer. Dragalge is next, if you wanted that rare Dragon type in your team. Dragalge is a massive special defensive wall, with 123 special defense. Over 97 special attack with adaptability, your poison and dragon type moves will be doing double damage, which is brilliant. You can do things such as Sludge Wave to do massive spread damage. However, it is quite slow, so maybe you'd want to set up in a trick room. You do have Slazzle at 117 speed. It adds fire to your team, which will help out with the steel types, as well as corrosion, which does well against the steel types because it will be able to poison those Pokemon. Meaning if you want to go for Toxic Stall, then maybe Slazzle would be the way to go. However, this thing won't stick around for too long because it does only have 60 defenses. Take advantage of its special attack and speed and you should be good. Fire is a brilliant support option for doubles. It gets Prankster, which is infamous, and being a normal poison type is essentially just a poison type with immunity to Ghost. If you're worried about opposing Gengar, then maybe Grafaiai is a good option to go. You can also control the weather with Sunny Day and Rain Dance. Now, Glimmer is an interesting choice. This thing also gets Corrosion, so if you want to run the Toxic games, then be my guest. You get to poison the Steel and Poison types that the opponents will be using. It is times for weak to ground, however we won't be seeing too many ground types this tournament. But if you were worried, you can translate this thing to a Water type, give it Terra Blast, and then you should be able to take care of the ground types. And then finally, we have the Chad himself, Clodsire. I was just mentioning about ground types. Clodsire does get 75 attack, which isn't too good, but you mainly want to use this thing for utility and setting up and throwing your opponents off with a massive special wall. You get things such as Stealth Rock and Toxic Spikes, you can recover, you can bait the opponent with Water Absorb to switch and heal yourself up. If I were to pick a top 3, that'd be Gengar, Skuntank and Grafaiai. Gengar, like I mentioned, hits really hard, really fast. Being a Ghost type means you don't have to worry about any fighting on normal types. You can just spam Shadow Balls left, right and centre. Just look out for its defences because they are quite low. But with how fast you'll be going and with how hard you'll be hitting, can't imagine Gengar running into too many problems this tournament. In terms of Skuntank, you get Stench. If you bite the opponents with a Stab Dark type move, then they'll most likely flinch. If not, go for things like Night Slash and Poison Jab. It's quite tanky as well. It's only weak to ground, meaning that you should have a good time at surviving. Maybe set up Light Screen and Reflex and you should be good. Then with Grafaiai, it's a solid option to set up things. You get access to Parting Shot, you get access to Fake Out, you can set up weathers, you can poison the opponent. And then finally, we move on to the electric types. We start off with Raichu, which at 110 speed is already looking like a really fast option. You get access to Fake Out, you can use things like Volt Tackle. And with Lightning Rod, it helps out just drawing those electric type moves that your water types will be threatened by. So it might not be the bulkiest option, but it could definitely run support with Fake Out and Lightning Rod. We have Electrode here with the highest speed of 150. You get 80 special attack, which is nice. Pair this up with maybe Rain, you can thunder the opponents and do a lot of damage. But like with Raichu, it's not exactly the bulkiest choice. Jolteon is definitely a good option. It is slightly lower at 130 speed, but it is faster than Raichu. But it does have 95 special defense, so you should at least survive one special attack. It does also get Volt Absorb as well, which doesn't quite work like Lightning Rod. And then with 110 special attack, Jolteon will definitely be able to deliver some heavy hits. Luxray gets 3 incredible abilities with Rivalry, Intimidate and Guts. Rivalry works well if you can gender match the opponents, and if you did want extra damage, then Guts is always a good option because you can stick a Flame Orb or Toxic Orb on this thing, and the 120 attack that it has is going to skyrocket up. It's not the fastest, only at 70 speed, but if you can set up a Tailwind or if you give this thing a Choice Scarf and go with Rivalry instead, you can definitely make use of the Pokemon. And it is decently bulky at basically 80 defenses each. So if you wanted a nice, interesting option, then Luxray is definitely one to throw your opponents off because they'll have to play the guess game of what ability does it have, what moves does it have, and what's its EV spreads. You get all the Rotom forms except the Rotom Wash. I won't go over them too much because they all do similar roles. They all have Levitate, giving you ground immunity. They're all decently speedy at 86. They're quite bulky with 107 defenses. Depending on which type you choose, Flying, Ice, Fire or Grass, will give you different options in a match. Ignis also has access to Levitate. However, while Rotom was faster, this thing just hits a lot harder with 115 attack and 105 special attack. And with decent bulk, if you are going to be hit with neutral damage, then you should be able to at least survive it. It does have Lightning Rod and Electric Surge, which is really good. It's the slowest in the format, only 15 speed. And while the attack stat is nice at 101, if you get double targeted by the opponent, with only 48 HP, this thing is probably just going to faint to it. We have an Electric Titan type in format. It gets Volt Absorb, so it's another Volt Absorber. At a brilliant speed of 105, you're actually going to be going first most of the time. And with moves such as Double Shock and Close Combat, if the opponent isn't expecting a physical attacker, then Pawmot will definitely throw them off. Whereas a lot of electric types are speedy, Belly Bolt is one of the slower options. Not as slow as Pincurchin, but still pretty slow. However, with 109 HP, 91 defense and 83 special defense, if you build this thing correctly, this thing will be able to take in a few hits. And with Electromorphosis, you can take the hits, do something like a Discharge or Parabolic Charge, and this thing is going to punish you for the attacks that you gave it. And then finally, we move on to Kilowattrel. Kilowattrel adds Flying to your team, which allows it to be immune to ground type moves. It does make it weak to Rock and Ice. However, to get around that, you Terrasilize into a Water type, use Terra Blast on the Rock types, and the Ice types won't be able to do any super effective damage to you. And if you can set the rain up, then Hurricane and Thunder are definitely the way to go. If I had to pick a top 3, I'd say Jolteon, Pawmot, and Kilowattrel. Jolteon is one of the fastest out there. It has a really nice 110 special attack, which you can take advantage of. And being an evolution, you can get Yawn and Wish, meaning that you could either run this thing as a super supportive option, or just a super aggressive option. Pawmot does a similar role to Raichu. It doesn't exactly get Lightning Rod, but it does get access to Fake Out. And while Raichu doesn't do much more than that, Pawmot gets access to other moves that can support the team. And unfortunately, Raichu stats are middling. And then with Kilowattrel, it adds Flying to your team, which is nice. Being a Flying type, it gets access to Tailwind. And if you're running a quick team, just set up Tailwind and you should be good. Kilowattrel does that brilliantly, it gets Wind Power. All you have to do is give it a Focus Sash or get it behind screens. When you're looking at an electric type, that is quite versatile. So that'll be it for this video. The tournament is starting mid-April on the 17th. I've run through the 4 typings, run through each Pokemon that you can use. If you are interested in signing up, please make it apparent on our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, or in our Discord server. Like I mentioned before, if we have a great turnout, we'll be able to do group stages, followed by a winner's bracket and a redemption bracket. Prizes are always available. I don't mention them because people don't tend to enjoy prizes. If you are looking for shiny Pokemon, or if you are looking for competitive Pokemon, I can provide just those, so long as you do well in the tournament and you stick around for a while. If you're not committed to 6 Pokemon in this team, you only need to have 4 Pokemon. If you do struggle to get the 4 Pokemon, then just ask and someone should be able to help you. But if you did need any help in any areas of the tournament, just let us know and we should be able to help out. But that'll be it for this video. Please like, comment and subscribe. Share the word around, make sure that we get more players. I've been your host, TVI Tornado. Thank you very much for sticking around to the end. I can't wait to see what teams people pick and what Pokemon they choose, what strategies they'll be using. Until next time guys, team build hard, and I'll see you guys next time.